In this lecture, we're going to look at the relationships between the male characters through the middle of the novel. We could describe this as men without women. We have Jake and Bill Gorton, his friend, taking off into the wilderness to fish for trout, to spend time together, and to affirm their affection for each other. Hemingway's Men Without Women was a collection of short stories published in 1927, the year after the publication of The Sun Also Rises. The location shifts from Paris to Spain, and we can see up here we've got San Sebastian, where Brett and Robert Cohn go. We've got Pamplona, which is the site of the fiesta, of the bullfights and the running of the bulls. And we've got the mountains where Jake and Bill Gorton go on their fishing trip. Here's San Sebastian, which features later in the novel as well. And I think this is interesting, the seal of the city of San Sebastian. Its motto reads, "Earned by fidelity, nobility, and loyalty." So there's an irony which I think Hemingway is establishing, which places the infidelity and the disloyalty in a certain sense of the relationship between Brett and Robert in San Sebastian. They're overturning the motto of the seal, we might say. Now, what does the fishing trip achieve? What's the purpose of it? How does it allow the characters to decompress, as it were, from their city life, their cafe life, to embrace nature and to affirm their close friendship? It's a lyrical interlude, a pastoral interlude. There are lyrical descriptions of trout fishing, and Bill and Jake share activities, they share the fishing, they have a competitive approach. You remember Bill finds that his fish are bigger than Jake's and is satisfied by that. Of course, they're drinking and eating and talking. Well, what kind of talk? Certainly a lot of it is humorous, it's bantering, but I think serious issues come up as well. We might look at page 120. This is in chapter 12 of the novel. And I'll just read what Bill is saying. They're joking around. "You know what's the trouble with you," he says to Jake. "You're an expatriate, one of the worst type. Haven't you heard that? Nobody that ever left their own country ever wrote anything worth printing, not even in the newspapers." He drank the coffee. "You're an expatriate. You've lost touch with the soil. You get precious. Fake European standards have ruined you. You drink yourself to death. You become obsessed by sex. You spend all your time talking, not working. You're an expatriate, see? You hang around cafes." Well, I think here we've got a series of cliches about the expatriate life. The expatriate is seen as deracinated, in other words, uprooted, disconnected from his or her national identity. The expatriate is somehow less American because he's living abroad. He's taken on foreign standards, fake European standards, and he is subject to a decadence of drinking and obsession with sex, etc. Well, Jake responds, "It sounds like a swell life. When do I work?" "You don't work. One group claims women support you, another group claims you're impotent." "No," I said, "I just had an accident." "Never mention that," Bill said. "That's the sort of thing that can't be spoken of. That's what you ought to work up into a mystery, like Henry's bicycle." Well, serious topics here. Expatriation is a serious topic in the novel. It's part of the character of the lost generation to be expatriated to be uncertain about the nature of their identity, their connection to the cultures that they move in. And impotence, of course, is a very serious topic in the book, as we well know. This is a scene that might remind us that Jake, in a sense, is an archetype of the Fisher King. The Fisher King from the Wasteland, for example, the Fisher King, the wounded king, who rules over a wasteland and passes his time fishing and must be cured in some obscure ritualistic way. Well, I think what's striking is that the banter and the intimacy allows Bill, even in this indirect, jokey way, to talk about matters of very deep concern, particularly to Jake. Now, bullfighting, I think, does something similar. It allows for the expression of close feelings and close bonds between men, though it's a highly ritualized way of doing that. We learn this through this notion of afición, which Hemingway tells us means passion. In chapter 13, Jake is talking to Montoya, who is the hotel owner and a great aficionado of the bullfighting. He discusses it. And we're told that being an aficionado is something that can't be faked. When they saw that I had afición, and there was no password, no set questions that could bring it out, rather it was a sort of oral spiritual examination, with the questions always a little on the defensive and never apparent. There was this embarrassed putting their hand on the shoulder, but nearly always there was the actual touching. It's a very special secret, a bond, you might say, a secret society based around this passion. And the novel, I think, gives us a clear sense of a hierarchy of values based around those who have the passion and those who don't. So Jake has the passion for it, clearly, and so does Bill, as best as he can. Brett Ashley, who knows nothing about the bullfights, soon reveals that she has a healthy appreciation of them, so she perhaps has an element of afición too, though she ends up, of course, ruining the bullfighter, Pedro Romero, or that's the charge anyway. And then at the other end of the spectrum, we've got Robert Cohn, who is afraid that he's bored, he's somewhat disgusted by the bullfights, clearly lacks the afición. Notice the emphasis on touching here and secrecy. This is almost like a surrogate religion, sort of oral spiritual examination, which you can't fake. It's that serious, that important, and it can't be broken down, I think, into a simple set of rational procedures. It goes a bit deeper than that. Well, the matador in bullfighting is a spectacle of courage, of grace, hopefully, though there are lots of fake matadors, we're told, but also I think of male beauty, particularly in this novel. Pedro Romero becomes this iconic figure of male beauty and courage, a sort of emblematic masculinity that the others can only aspire to. Bill and Jake are taken by Montoya to see Pedro Romero as he gets ready for the bull ring. Montoya said something about what great aficionados we were and that we wanted to wish him luck. Romero listened very seriously. Then he turned to me. He was the best-looking boy I have ever seen. Well, is there a homoerotic element to this? Perhaps so. What we can see, I think, certainly are a series of relationships between men that are channeled in particular ways. They're channeled through fishing, through drinking, through bullfighting in a highly ritualized way. And they're also, I think, in a strange way, channeled through kinds of rivalry, through jealousy, where you have men turning around Brett, rather as in that scene during the fiesta where Brett dances and the men dance around her. She becomes the conduit, we might say, for relationships between men. Now, I think it's worth entertaining that idea, but it's also worth questioning that idea, because Brett surely is more than just a medium for men to experience rivalry and hostility. Um, she upsets the structures that hold those triangles in place and subverts those rivalries because she keeps shifting her object of affection. And she very clearly chooses Pedro as her object of affection, even though it causes chaos within the novel. Now, the French philosopher and anthropologist René Girard suggests that this structure of a love triangle is based around mimetic desire, as he calls it, where you have two people essentially copying each other and competing for the affections of one person. And to Girard's way of thinking, such structures almost invariably issue in violence unless the mimetic rivalry between the figures can be channeled in some other way. And I think when we come on to talk a bit more about bullfighting, I'll suggest that that might be one way in which violence can be channeled or contained in the novel, though imperfectly, in this structure. And Brett, we might say, overturns the patriarchal values that that structure of bullfighting depends upon.